What is up, YouTube? Brad Hoover from Answer Us here. Alright, so is the MCU sky falling? Will MCU fall into mediocrity and never make good movies again? Not going so far to say that. Look, here on Answer Us, I have always been very upfront with what I thought of the MCU. They're good films. They really are, in a lot of ways. I know a lot of people that love the MCU would completely and totally disagree. But that's the way I've always felt towards them. They're good popcorn flicks, but they're not engaging and just, breakthrough movies of really anything. They're just good popcorn flicks. There's very few of them, except for like the first Iron Man, Black Panther, that I really, really care to actually just rewatch and rewatch and rewatch again. But I do think that those movies they're good movies. They're really good movies. They're rewatchable movies. But there is so many, like Thor, Dark World, Black Widow. There's so many of these movies that I just cannot even go back and rewatch. And if I do, I don't get the same excitement from them. I think they're dull in a lot of ways. But you know what? Not everything's going to be a success. So yeah, I totally get that. But at the same time, when you've got something that is supposed to be as money making, and which is, I guess, as money making as what the MCU is, you would expect a better quality of movies. It's not, unfortunately, what we always get. But is the Eternals going to be a big disappointment? I would say somewhere is in between. I say yes. If you look down here at the ratings, you see this 75%, which is really terrible. It's really terrible. It is not the score that you would necessarily expect from early reviewers. Usually early reviewers love to kiss ass. They love to always tell you how grand this movie is, even though they know it's utter garbage. Which I'm not saying this movie is utter garbage, but I'm just saying a lot of these early critics will tell you that this movie is the most brilliant things, game-changing movie they've ever seen, simply so that they can get early reviews on other movies. So they're the first to be able to talk about it. That's their job. And so you got to always take these early reviewers with a grain of salt. So when you start seeing kind of like a 75% rating when it comes to even Rotten Tomatoes, you got to kind of think to yourself, why isn't this higher? Why isn't this in the 90%? Why are these early critics, what do they have bad to say about it? And for the most part, mediocrity. Go ahead and I'll read a little bit some of these things that people say. Even the ones that are even talking good about it have something really kind of negative to say about it. It says the weight of complicated exposition weakens the energy of Eternals a little too often. It's at the best when the focus is on the Eternals recreating their family, the humor of it, and the passion when they fight for each other and the things they love. That's a semi-good one, even though it's kind of rotten. It says Eternals may not be the worst of Marvel movies, but it's undoubtedly the most disappointing. So that's kind of a vague one. That one doesn't really give us a good idea of exactly what they absolutely hate about it. It says it's constantly engaged in a kind of grit-tooth authenticity theater, going out of its way to show you it's doing all the things proper cinema does, even though none of them bring any discernible benefit whatsoever to the film at hand. Now, basically, what that's just stating is, hey, you know what? It's going through the motions. That's the way I felt like a lot of really these last few projects, even the ones that I liked, even like with Loki and so forth, I felt like they're going through the motions. They found a good formula, a formula that really works for them, and they just keep making movies with that same formula. And sometimes it works, but then other times it, depending upon the actors or actresses that are playing the part, depending upon the superhero, sometimes it just doesn't work. Sometimes it falls incredibly flat in a lot of ways, and that's kind of sad in a way, because there is usually potential within every single one of these movies. But it just depends upon, sometimes the director, the actors that go along with it, and just really the script that they're given. But it says you walk out in the depressing realization that you've just seen one of the more interesting movies Marvel will ever make, and hopefully the least interesting one Chloe Zhao will ever make. That's on the directing on that one. That is just basically, that I don't know if this is people that they're going in there with incredibly high expectations, which I'll admit, I was, when this movie was first announced, I was super psyched for this movie. I thought this movie was going to be game changing. I thought it was going to be something new, something different. And then when I got to see, the first little bits of it, I was like, ooh, this seems kind of boring. It seems like a lot of plot holes. It seems like there's going to be a lot of time wasted in trying to get everybody together and try to explain away why they didn't do anything about Thanos. It felt like that in a lot of different ways. And then, of course, you have all of the leaks that are coming out. And man, if any of those leaks are correct when it comes to that, this movie's going to be awful. It's going to be just awful, awful in so many ways. It says, this is a film that asks on a grand scale questions we grapple with every day. How do we navigate and understand difference? Why do we value humanity so much when other humans often do not seem to value each other? That kind of goes with some of the leaks about, kind of makes me think that maybe some of those leaks are true, especially when it talks about some of these Eternals valuing humanity, and then others kind of being like, well, what have they done with what they've been given and what we've kind of given them in a lot of different ways. I mean, that kind of makes me think that some of these leaks are true. It says, worth seeing just to experience bizarre narrative corners IP driven filmmaking and mindless synergy have painted these filmmakers into, which actually kind of makes you think, okay, is that really a good rating or not a good rating? Because that feels more like it is basically telling us that, hey, you know what, it's just a bunch of mindless garbage, but hey, it's MCU, so go see it. That's the way it feels. It says Eternals is Marvel's Suicide Squad, but with a slightly better ending. Why to say that? They gave them a 6.5 out of 10 rating. If it's the Suicide Squad, then Marvel has a big, big problem on their hand. Marvel's reputation has saved them in a lot of ways. Because really, after Black Widow, Shang-Chi should have been literally nothing. Should have been literally nothing. The idea that Marvel is just living off of their name at this point is all I can really think about, because what I've seen lately, it's just kind of been that way. It has been where Marvel is living off its name, but it's not presenting us good quality films anymore. And that's always a shame. But as far as the Eternals is concerned, when it was first announced, super excited about it. Now that I've seen a little bit of it, now that I've heard what a little bit of these maybe possible leaks, what it's about, and what some of these top critics have said about it, kind of seems like maybe it's just a middle of the road film. Is it worth seeing? Well, according to a lot of these, yes, it's worth seeing, but it's a mindless, boring film that really doesn't take any steps to really further the MCU in any way. But hey, we'll just have to see when it comes out. As always, guys, let me know what y'all think in the comments down below. And thank y'all so much for watching. Take care.